You know that feeling, right? You hear a joke in another language, everyone around you is laughing, and you're just standing there, totally lost. Humor is without a doubt one of the hardest things to translate, and today we're going to figure out why by diving headfirst into the brilliant and yeah, sometimes baffling world of Chinese wordplay.
Okay, so take this joke. If I just told you a bun gets hit by a car and says, my trap came out, you'd probably just stare at me blankly. It makes absolutely zero sense. But in Chinese, this is a classic. So what are we missing? What's the secret code here that just vanishes in translation?
Well, that is exactly what we're going to do today. Think of us as linguistic detectives, and our mission is to crack the code of Chinese puns. So let's get our investigation started. So here's our plan of attack. We're going to start with the secret of words that sound alike, then we'll crack open words that have double meanings, check out the humor when things get too literal, and then we'll put all the pieces together to understand humor's cultural code. All right, our very first clue is all about one of the most powerful tools in Mandarin Chinese wordplay, homophones. These are words that sound exactly the same but are written differently and mean completely different things. And trust me, this is where the real magic happens.
Let's circle back to that first baffling joke. So in the original Chinese, baozi, that's a steamed bun, gets hit by a car. And as it's lying there, it manages to whisper, my shen came out. Now what in the world could shen mean here?
And here it is. Here's the secret. The word the bun says, xian, has two meanings, all based on how it's written. One character, xian, means the filling of the bun, but another character, xian, means to be trapped or to fall into a trap. So the poor bun is saying its filling came out, but it sounds exactly like it's saying it fell into a trap. And boom, that's the punchline. The humor is all packed into that one single sound, shen, which connects two totally different ideas in a perfect, if slightly tragic, pun. When you hear it, your brain processes both meanings at once.
Let's try another one. See if you can spot it this time. Why does a student named Xiao Meng always bring a fish to school? The answer is because his teacher told him to dai tou. Any guesses what's going on here?
So the phrase dai tou means to take the lead. You know, a totally normal thing for a teacher to ask a student to do. But Xiaoming hears it as the very similar sounding phrase dai yu tou, which literally means to bring a fish head. So he's just taking his teacher's instructions a little too literally, all based on a simple misunderstanding of sound.
So we've seen how two completely different words can share a sound. But what happens when it's the exact same word, written and pronounced the same, that's pulling double duty? Let's move on to our next clue and see how this works.
All right, here's the setup. A cell phone, a watch, and a TV all apply for a job. Who gets hired? The cell phone. And why? Because it's always Zaishan.
The key to this whole joke is the phrase zaishen. Now, in our modern world, we all know this means to be online, but the characters literally mean at the line or on the scene. So in a job interview context, it can also mean to be physically present at the company, ready to go. The cell phone gets the job because it's both always online and always on site. Pretty clever, right?
So, the crucial point here is that clever use of a word's dual identity. See, unlike the sound-alikes, the humor here comes from one single word, zaishen, having two meanings that both make perfect sense inside the story of the joke.
And for our final clue, we're going to look at a type of humor that pops up a lot with modern slang and common expressions. It's what happens when someone decides to just ignore the figurative meaning and take things, well, at face value. Here is a fantastic example. A patient goes to his doctor and says, "Doctor, I have lazy cancer." The doctor asks, "How should we treat it?" And the patient just replies, "I'm too lazy to be treated." Okay, so the term lan ai, or lazy cancer, is a super popular slang term in Chinese for just being incredibly, pathologically lazy. It's not a real medical thing. The entire joke is that the patient is treating this metaphor, this piece of slang, as if it were a literal, actual diagnosis, which of course leads to that absurdly perfect punchline. And let's look at one last one. A little bird asks its mom, "Why do we live in a tree instead of a luxury villa?" And the mom bird says, "Honey, we do live in a gaodang shechu." So here's the wordplay. The phrase gaodang shechu is the everyday term for a high-end or luxury community. But the very first character, gao, literally just means high. The mother bird is being clever, playing on that literal meaning. They live in a community that is physically high up, because, they're in a tree. So,
After following all of these clues, what's the big takeaway? What have we actually uncovered? What is the secret code behind all this Chinese wordplay?
Well, we found 3 main keys to unlock these jokes. First, there's the use of sound-alikes, where a single pronunciation can point to multiple words. Second, there are double meanings, where one word does all the heavy lifting. And third, there's the humor of literalism, where you pretend figurative language is cold hard fact. And really, what cracking this code shows us is that translating a joke isn't just about swapping out words. It's about understanding the unique architecture of the language itself, its sounds, its characters, and the whole cultural context that gives those words their punch.
And that kind of leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? Puns aren't just silly little jokes. They're actually a window into the very soul of a language. So maybe take a second to think about the jokes you tell in your language. What does that humor reveal about its structure and about your culture?